Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Produce Buzzers podcast. We are so happy you have joined us today, and I think you will be too after the show is over, because you will learn a lot about fresh fruits and vegetables, how to select and store them, how to prepare and cook them, and surprising facts about their history and origin. We hope it inspires you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, not only for your health, but also for your delight and pleasure as you explore their amazing world of taste and delicious flavors. Eating more of them will transform your life in so many positive ways. So settle back, relax, and get ready for another delicious adventure with the Produce Buzzers. Greetings, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, and welcome to another delicious episode of the Produce Buzzers podcast. I'm Edwin Stepp, your host and executive editor of ProduceBuzz.com. I'm joined once again by Teresa Nolan, the founder and president of Produce Buzz, along with Rick Stepp, a contributing editor to Produce Buzz. Our lovely colleague, Cynthia Benedetto, can't make it today. She sends her regrets, and she'll be back with us again soon. So today, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, we are delighted to have Robert Schueller of Melissa's World Variety Produce back on the show. He's one of our favorite guests, so informative, so interesting, and brings so many unique items to showcase here for the show. So we hope you'll sit back and listen and be inspired. Robert's official title at Melissa's is Director of Public Relations, but we prefer his unofficial title given to him by countless consumer and national trade publications, along with TV and radio personalities. Robert is the produce expert. There probably is no one on the planet who is more of an expert on produce than Robert, because his company sells over 1,500 different varieties of fresh fruits and veggies from all over the world. He's written several books on fresh produce, including my favorite, Melissa's Great Book of Produce, which tells all about some of the most exotic fruits and veggies from around the world. It's a beautiful publication with beautiful photos, lots of interesting and helpful information. This week, we are going to focus on Thanksgiving, since it's just around the corner. But as you might expect, a Thanksgiving featuring fruits and veggies from Melissa's might be a little different than the traditional Thanksgiving meal you serve up here in America. And while Melissa's does sell all those traditional fruits and veggies, and we'll talk about a few of those too, they have some very interesting alternatives to give your Thanksgiving meal an exciting twist. On their website, you'll find a section they are featuring right now called Fresh and Modern Thanksgiving. On that page, you will find some intriguing and delightful recipe options to shake up the normal Turkey Day offerings. Dishes like melon and mozzarella caprese salad, maple roasted carrots and tahini sauce with pomegranate and pistachios, and hatch pozole verde. You'll also find some twists on the traditional dishes, such as hatch pepper cranberry sauce and rye, kale, mushroom, and pumpkin seed stuffing for your turkey. Doesn't that sound fantastic? And they offer some alternative desserts and appetizers there too. Robert is going to tell us about some of those and other interesting fruits and veggies that will fit right in with your Thanksgiving meal, whether you are staying more traditional or want to go really edgy and avant-garde. Robert, welcome back to the show, and thanks again for joining us. You are one of our favorite and interesting guests. We appreciate your willingness to join us.
Well, thank you guys, everybody, for having me today. Glad to be back, and talk about what we consider the Super Bowl of food. This is the time, Thanksgiving is the time of the year where everybody gets together, families and friends, over a nice, huge meal, traditional with Thanksgiving stuffing and all the trimmings, to your non-traditional, upbeat, trendy, and, really sought after ingredients to make your everyday meal extraordinary. This is a great time to show off your cooking abilities to your families and friends, because I always see this as a kind of almost like a potluck among the family, where one family is really known for doing stuffing, and one family's good doing sweet potatoes, one family's good bringing the pumpkin pies and stuff like that, another one cranberries and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you how to upgrade or soup up the specific flavors and ingredients used for Thanksgiving to make sure that you make the right recipe when you come around the table with your families and friends this holiday season.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. That's a very good point. I'd never thought about it. I love your Super Bowl of meals, and also the fact that, yeah, it is a time when you count on Aunt Irma's special recipe or whatever her name might be. So that's a really good point. And we want to hear some of your twists on these things. So take us through it.
Well, let's talk about some of the staple ingredients that you would see in most Thanksgiving meals there. I think one of the unique ones is actually a chestnut. This is the time of the year where you can get fresh chestnuts. The season starts in October, late October, and goes through December. It imparts a delicious rustic Thanksgiving flavor profile to stuffing, to a side dish. You can put it in with beans. What Melissa's offers is we do offer fresh ones, and they're very expensive, and they do take time to create for those who know how to do it. And there's a safe way to cook fresh chestnuts, and there's not a safe way to do it. So if you go to melissa.com, you'll find out how to work with fresh chestnuts. However, Melissa's been offering steamed and peeled chestnuts. This gives the consumer the opportunity to easily bring in chestnuts into the meal without going through the whole process of washing, scoring, cooking, taking it out of the seed and then preparing it. We've taken out all those steps where you can buy in the package. We actually have we offer it on year-round basis, but during the October, November, and December months, we sell 90% of it during that time because people believe that chestnuts are only a seasonal ingredient, and we make it that much easier. So literally, the steamed and peeled chestnuts, you might be familiar with Melissa's steamed and ready to go beets, and you also might be familiar with the Melissa's steamed lentils that are ready to go out of the package.
Right, they're delicious.
But with chestnuts that are already peeled, steamed, and literally you just drop into the final recipe, whether you're making a dessert, a salad, or using it into the stuffing, which imparts just that rustic flavor with all the other ingredients and of the traditional turkey that you use there. You can make an absolutely delicious side dish using peeled and steamed chestnuts.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. So look for those. That's great. That's great news because it is a lot of work to cook the chestnuts. I guess a lot of people roast them, and that's even more difficult. But you get the same flavor from steamed as you do from a roasting, or is it
correct?
Okay.
One of the things that you'll see on the package as the ingredients, they're basically kind of a cryovac packaging technology. So you'll see that the ingredients is only chestnuts. There's no added chemicals. This isn't a jarred item. This isn't a canned item. There's no heavy preservative. There is a shelf life. Usually the shelf life's anywhere from 30 to 60 days. So it is a refrigerated package that you would find in the produce department next to those steamed beets and steamed lentils. So this is the closest you'll get to fresh chestnuts without the big, long process.
Right. Fantastic. Yeah, and I bet you there's some great recipes on your page using those. So melissas.com, listeners, go check that out and think about your chestnuts. And that, of course, chestnuts through Christmas as well. So that's a big item at Christmas time. Same kind of meal preparation we usually do. So that's fantastic. What else is kind of new, or what's got you excited for the things? Oh, Rick has a question, I think.
Yes. Are your chestnuts imported, or are they?
Correct.
They are, okay.
They're imported from Europe. The steamed ones are from the steamed ones we receive are from France. The fresh imported, we get them from South Korea right now, and soon we'll be getting them from Italy. I think the Italy are the most popular. But they become the fresh ones. They becoming very pricey in the marketplace.
Yeah.
We don't have a domestic commercial crop that grows in the United States, so it's always been an item that we've imported into the United States
Right.
during the holiday season.
Yeah, the American chestnut got wiped out in the early 1900s, I think, but they're trying to bring it back. I just saw an article yesterday, and especially here in the Western North Carolina, the Appalachian regions, I think is where they really grew really well. So there's a real effort to bring them back. But for now, Italian, European chestnuts are really good. So that's, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to some other ingredients that are vital for your Thanksgiving or added holidays later down the road there, Hanukkah, Christmas, New Year's. The best potato, I think, this has always been a thing. Like, what is the best potato to make your mashed potatoes or best sauteed potato? I think pound for pound, Melissa's is known for their Dutch potatoes, whether they're the yellow ones, the red ones, or the blue ones.
Right.
One thing's for sure, they all, the Dutch yellow are yellow on the inside and outside, and the Dutch red are yellow on the inside and red on the outside. The baby blues, which are a purplish blue color, on the outside and interior as well. But one thing's for sure, these Dutch potatoes are not starchy. They have easy cooking time. You do not need to peel them. If you wanted them to be very smooth, like in the mashed potato, just use your potato ricer. A potato ricer allows you, after you cook it, to just skin them really easily to make, if you're going to do mashed potatoes. But I say do a rustic mashed potato where you don't have to use a potato ricer, where you just smash up and add that extra texture in your mashed potatoes. And the Dutch yellow potatoes are a brilliant potato to use because they're less starchy, they're not as waxy, very creamy. You don't have to add a lot of butter or sour cream to make it an enjoyable mashed potato there. And just, season it as you would with fresh ingredients, thyme, whatever your favorite is there, a little salt and pepper there, and you have a great mashed potato, which is, I think, very traditional for the Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah, and those the multicolored ones are really fun. You have a pack that has all three of those in it, don't you? To me, that is so beautiful to see those three colors on, roasted. I like to roast them, so you keep that color there. So
no, definitely, and that's what is used more on the modern, updated Thanksgiving table. You would see the three different colors that I talked to you about, the Dutch. We do a pack that has all of them. We call them gemstones. It's a mixture of all the different colors. And I think one thing that a lot of the chefs or whoever the cook of the family is, who does the main portions for Thanksgiving, it has a great plate presentation with all the colors there, very attractive, a great way to get your kids to eat more produce by offering the colors. And it's just that plate presentation that gives it a little special, not just the flavor, but the plate presentation as well is very important for all your pictures that you take for your Thanksgiving holiday there.
It makes it taste better to me too. I don't know why. And of course, those purple potatoes, they're loaded with the what do they call those nutrients? It just went out of my head. The
antioxidants. The purple and the blue color is an anthocyanin. So, there's only a few fruits and vegetables that retain that color and have the antioxidant qualities that help fight cancer properties within your immunity and body. So, I can only think of a couple of their handful of sweet potatoes, blackberries. There's not a lot of fruits and vegetables that are purple or blue. That's for sure.
That's true. But that is really healthy. So as you said, it fights the cancer. Okay. So we could talk about potatoes all day, but I think you have some other things you want to.
Yeah. I think onions. Okay. I think one of the secret ingredients that upcoming chefs or chefs of the families for the big meals, instead of using traditional yellow onions or white onions in many of the dishes, you want to really refined flavor for an onion. Use shallots.
Right.
This is really known for its shallots. available throughout the year, but more often than not, shallots have become so popular for the big Super Bowl meal on Thanksgiving time and throughout the rest of the holidays. It just does something and imparts the flavors of the onions, but it makes it just a little bit more refined. And a lot of chefs are shaking their head. Yes, yes, I use shallots, as a replacement for onions in many cases.
Right.
So that's the way to go. But if you were doing your traditional pearl onions and peas,
Oh, right.
this is a tip. This is a tip I'm going to give you. So Melissa's is known for their pearl onions. We're known for all of our varieties of potatoes and onions in particular because they're grown out of the Magic Valley in Idaho, the state that is most known for onions and potatoes because of its volcanic root stock. But traditionally, people like to use the white pearl onions with their green peas, traditional dish. I say go non-traditional, do pearl onions and peas, but did you know that pearl onions come in other colors than white? They come in gold and they come in red. I myself, I like the sweeter onions, and I think the white pearl onions is very mild and bland.
Yeah.
However, if you want the sweetness in it, I say use the red one or the gold one. It also imparts a different color onto that traditional dish, but I'm all about the sweetness. So if you want it a little bit sweeter, use the gold pearl onions. But if you want it much sweeter to match with the peas, I say use the red pearl onions. But all three you can use because it's traditional. But if you want to make it non-traditional, use the gold or the red pearl onions.
Fantastic. I didn't realize there were red and yellow or gold of those pearl onions. I'm very familiar with the white ones. And once again, I imagine you could mix those and have that presentation again with the various colors, right? Does the color go out of them as they're cooked with peas or not? The red
when they
ones.
are steamed, they turn from a dark red, purple, and then when there's an easy way to do pearl onions. I don't think most people know, but you blanch them. You boil them for about 2 minutes. Let them rest out, and then literally you squeeze the onion, and the little pearl onion pops out, and then you pop them all out. You put them into your dish there, but they do retain their color. They're not going to all cook out white. They do retain more of their color. The dark red purple actually turns into more of a lavender purplish color. And then the gold, you could clearly see that they're more yellowish. They're not bright yellow, but they are yellowish when you put them in the dish with your peas, which obviously are green there.
All right, that sounds fantastic. Okay, I think next you have for us something that's very traditional, but what makes Melissa's so much better?
Okay, are you talking about yams and sweet potatoes?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, depending on where you live in the country, in the Southeast, everybody calls them yams.
That's true.
However, hate to break this news to you, they're botanically sweet potatoes. Yams are large tubers, typically grown throughout the world, a lot in third world countries. They don't have much flavor to them. They have a very thick skin. However, sweet potatoes have a thin skin that are actually edible. And sweet potatoes not impart a sweet flavor when you cook them, they're actually very colorful inside. Yeah. But, if you want to continue to call it a yam, call it a yam. Yams are colorless, usually always white, and they have a thick skin. But sweet potatoes, the skin is edible, they're colorful. Now, the traditional sweet potato that most people use are the orange and red ones, the garnets, which are the red ones, and the yellow and the orange ones, which are the jewels. Those are the most popular. However, pound for pound, they're not the tastiest. They're tasty, but if you want something tastier and you want to also bring more pop to your sweet potato side dish or sweet potato pie, did you know you can get Charleston, which are the purple ones, and you would have a bright purple dish instead, and they're super sweet. However, I'm going to give you a tip of my favorite. They're called the Japanese or the Mursaki sweet potatoes. Right. They're burgundy on the outside. They have a whitish cream color on the inside, and they, pound for pound, are the best. Now, here's another unique way you can do it. Now, you have the large sweet potatoes, which are pretty big in size. But there's also baby sweet potatoes / yams. They're about the size of your index finger.
Hmm.
They're small. They look like fingerling potatoes. And the neat thing about these is, one, the skin is very edible. You don't have to skin them. Two, the cooking time is like a fourth the time we would take traditional sweet potatoes. A lot of people like to peel their sweet potatoes / yams, but for the baby ones, which are small, like little fingerling potatoes, you do not need to peel them. But the next time you're in the produce department, look at all the different varieties. I know you probably will first grab those garnets or jewels because they're most plentiful. Look to the left or right of them. Look for those burgundy colored skin ones. They're called Japanese or Moussaka. Those are the ones that will make your Thanksgiving a little sweeter, and they make a wonderful sweet potato pie, yam pie as well.
Wow, that is fantastic. I don't think I've seen the fingerling style sweet potatoes, but I'm definitely going to look for those. That sounds fantastic. And I think we're on a theme here of these varying colors of everything you've presented so far. I like that. Once again,
That has been the trend for these traditional American holidays that have become somewhat tradition, but with a flair and with a really big jump start to what you can do different this time.
Right. Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, what do you have for us next? Maybe another traditional veggie, I think.
I think a great side dish, and I think I remember about 30, 40 years ago, I'm dating myself here, is Brussels sprouts used to be looked upon as, I think, in many cases, a punishment when you were a kid there. Of course, the
That's
Brussels
true.
sprouts that I received were out of the can, and it was a punishment.
Yeah.
But for the last 10 years, Brussels sprouts have really been trending. They're very easy to find fresh on a year-round basis. The fall season just happens to be the peak of the season where you can find them fresh, whole in the produce departments, really small ones or really large ones. I always think of them as little heads of cabbage, right?
Yeah,
But they're not.
look like
They're
it.
in the same family as cabbage, but
Right.
they're much smaller. But one thing's for sure, you can find them now in produce departments on the stock. The
Yeah.
Brussels sprouts are still growing on the stock. It's a great way to get the freshest Brussels sprouts on the stock. You just cut them off. You can actually cook it on the stock and cut it off at the center tables. What a great piece it would look like, or dish that would look onto the table there, or just cut them off, cook them. And those are the freshest you can Brussels sprouts because they're still in the stock. Only during the fall season will you find Brussels sprouts on the stock. And if you have that special dish using Brussels sprouts, bacon, pomegranate or dried cranberries there, Brussels sprouts are not only a traditional, but nuanced traditional side dish that has become more popular. And with the colors, with the dried cranberries, the pomegranates, with the bright green that the Brussels sprouts impart, what a plate pleaser in color you would have there.
Yeah, I've done that before, cooked them, and it was at Thanksgiving. We had some guests over, and I cooked them on the stalk, and when I brought them out, most of the people there had never seen them on the stalk, first of all. And when they saw it as this centerpiece, wow, I got a lot of oohs and ahs. So that really is a great way to do it. And they are, I think, tastier. Anyway,
so how do you serve it on the stalk? I mean, are people just going to reach over and tweak them off, or are you going to have to cut them with a knife?
Okay, so on a stalk, usually a stalk which has a big thick core, and it just kind of looks like a little tree of pomegranate. Of Brussels sprouts. Right. However, because they're long, it's about 1.5 feet, 2 feet long. You would definitely only have to broil them, put them into the oven. You obviously wouldn't be able to saute or anything like that. Yes, so they are soft on the vine. In some cases, sometimes they will start to fall off, but most often than not, you would keep at least a butter knife on the table, and they can just cut them off, and you can just cut off the Brussels sprouts and then pick it up with a fork that's another way to do it. Most often than not, a lot of people will, what they do is they cut off all the Brussels sprouts, put the stock on the platter, and then pile the Brussels sprouts around that. So all they would need is a serving spoon to be able to get the Brussels sprouts off the plate. So there's really two ways to do it. It's a little bit more messier and takes more time if they're cutting off the Brussels sprouts themselves off the center of the plate there. So depending if you have kids, you don't want them to have a knife and cutting Brussels sprouts on a Thanksgiving table. I don't recommend that. So if there's a lot of kids, make sure they're cut off and piled on top of the stock. So
what I did when I served them that way is I brought it out, put it out on the center, and then while I was carving the turkey, my wife cut off the Brussels sprouts, but everybody got to see them first, and then she went through and cut them and did the pile, like you said. So that's another way to do it. Okay,
there you go. That's the way to share a responsibility. One person carves the turkey, and the other person carves the Brussels sprouts.
Right.
There we go.
I don't know which is harder, but well, the thing about Brussels sprouts is we learned how to cook them, didn't we? That was the thing. People just didn't know how to cook them before. So now you've given us some great ideas for that. So yeah. Okay, what next for our Thanksgiving meal, Robert?
Thanksgiving won't be Thanksgiving without cranberries. And
of course,
when I was much younger again, I only thought cranberries came out of a canned, almost like Jello.
Right.
And a lot of people love that, but usually I remember it used to always just sit on the table, and rarely would someone say pass the cranberry mold or Jello or whatever you call it there. Right. Fresh cranberries are now plentiful. They're a highly seasonal ingredient, traditional. You can use it in the stuffing. I like them stewed and used as a butter spread on like a Hawaiian roll. That's the way my family enjoys it the most. A little butter, but more cranberry. Almost make it like a little slider, put a little sliver of turkey in there, but whatever. But another thing that's become really popular, because there's families that love cranberries and don't. Dry cranberries. I mean, it's like the pumped up, souped up raisin. It imparts a tart flavor. You have your traditional cranberry, and you can use it in so many side dishes. You can use it in the stuffing. It goes great on a green salad. It goes great in Brussels sprouts or other type of root vegetables that you may serve, like other ingredients like rainbow carrots or cauliflower or something along that line, because it imparts a sweet and tart flavor profile, the dry cranberries that is, with those other dishes. So you got to have cranberries. It says traditional as the Thanksgiving turkey, right?
Right. Teresa.
And Robert, you're talking to a family that grew up on fresh cranberry sauce. Our mother was, we had to have fresh cranberry sauce at Thanksgiving, and we even ate fresh cranberry sauce and turkey sandwiches for leftovers. I don't know if Edwin remembers that or not.
Oh yeah, I still make it. I make with the leftovers. Turkey sandwiches are fantastic, and I always put cranberry sauce on them. It's really good.
Yeah, and Rick makes a mean cranberry sauce. And his secret ingredient is, Rick?
Orange juice.
Yes, he makes it with orange juice.
I take the recipe off of the cranberry bag. Whichever brand you buy, they usually have a recipe for cranberry sauce. Mm-hmm. Substitute orange juice for the water, and it really soups it up.
Ooh.
Yeah, very and so
you probably don't need as much sugar either.
Well, no, I use the same amount of sugar because I only eat it once a year, so it really makes it good with the orange flavor. And for example, Melissa's, you could promote your blood oranges. The juice from, I think it's a cup of water you usually put in a 12-ounce bag. Mm-hmm. 1 cup of fresh blood orange juice. And
the blood oranges are more used as the cooking oranges. They're not as tart. They're sweet, but yes, that's always been the chef's secret when you're cooking with oranges. Use blood oranges most often than not there. So
And Teresa has a great cranberry sauce recipe too, where she puts some jalapenos in it, at least one of it. She makes several of them. And I noticed that you have hatch pepper cranberry sauce, so I featured that. But tell us, Teresa, about your.
I do mine as a salsa, and you don't have to cook the
right.
cranberries. You know, you do
that's
the
right.
cranberries with a cup of sugar, and then you throw in onion and jalapeno, and also some. You can do a little bit of cumin or something like that to add some flavor to it. But all of those things are good.
My family, our cranberry, we do a cranberry dish, which is a salsa. It includes like some fresh ginger and cilantro in it, and it's not like a chip salsa. You can have it as a chip salsa, but what we do is we get water crackers, a little of cream cheese, and then you put the salsa on top. It was a very old, it was out of a Cooking Light magazine back in the early 2000s, late 1990s. And that recipe has stuck. And we've done this recipe as an appetizer when we do crackers and cream cheese and, cut fruit and vegetables right at the beginning before the start. And we already get our cranberry recipe dish in there for Thanksgiving, and it's delicious. In fact, we not only do it for Thanksgiving because the fresh cranberries are starting October. They go through December, maybe up until end of January. We also do it for Christmas and New Year's too.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And I throw as many packages as I can get in my freezer so that I can have them through the winter and even at Easter. So that's a good hint too.
Yeah.
Wow.
They keep well.
It tastes just as good using the fresh frozen cranberries as the fresh ones. You really can't tell the difference when you make cranberry sauce.
Right, exactly. And that's few and far between because a lot of produce doesn't freeze as well. When it thaws out, a lot of times that produce item's a mess. But as you know, cranberries do freeze good. Hatch chilies, they freeze really good. And that's why you mentioned, Edwin, about how we have a cranberry hatch recipe on our website. Because if you remember, back in August, September, Melissa does the fresh hatch chilies. But the hatch chilies, after you roast them, freeze so well in your freezer. It's hatch worthy enough to bring out some to use for the Thanksgiving side dish, or as a condiment to enjoy, because when people take out hatch chilies, that they're taking it out for a special event.
Right. Yeah, that's
so
great.
You use the frozen roasted hatch chilies for the cranberry sauce?
Correct. Because
I still have some in my freezer, so I'm going to try that this year.
Yes, and see, that's the thing. The cranberries freeze good. The hatch chili freezes good. Some of the berries, if you know what you're doing, they freeze okay. But I always say fresh is best, and that's kind of my thing. But when there's certain items that are very seasonal, and you want to ensure it, I guess freezing is the best way to do it. Canning is another way to do it, but a lot of the canning and whatnot, you put a lot of pickling or preservative, vinegar and salt, and it will, when you bring it out, will kind of taste not like the fresh. It will taste a little different there. But yes, I agree. Cranberries do freeze very well, but you have to Google how to freeze them, because if you don't freeze them right, you're going to end up freezing them and they're going to be one big chunk. So there is an art to be able to freeze some of the produce items.
Right. Yeah. Good tips.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Are we still on some traditional veggies, or
yes,
you got something?
I think a side ingredient, kind of like the Brussels sprouts I mentioned earlier, which is kind of a newer side ingredient to the traditional Thanksgiving, green beans. However, I dare you to up your green bean side casserole or dish using French beans, haricots, which are which you would consider baby green beans, but they're their own beans. So think of it, a green bean is traditionally about 4 or 5 inches long. Your French bean, much smaller, very refined flavor, is about 3 inches long. So they're much smaller, but as I had mentioned that the shallot is a refined onion, the French bean is the refined green bean.
Okay, excellent. And Melissa's offers those, and we should look for those because I'm sure that will just give a little different twist. We're talking about different twists here today. So, okay. And what next have you got for us?
What do we have next? Well, I had kind of mentioned about some of the root vegetables that would pair well as a great side dish.
Yep.
Rainbow carrots is a great one. Again, adding the color, adding flavor, peeling them whole, chopped. Parsnips, which most people think is a white carrot, is its own root vegetable. It does have a carrot-like quality, but much sweeter than a regular carrot. They've been becoming really trendy lately. Those white parsnip fruits, really easy to cook, and you can combine them with other root vegetables like carrots because they're so close in size, texture, and overall flavor. And again, adding that color there.
Right.
But I think another thing that I don't want to skip over is some of the mighty winter squashes, the really thick squashes that you can use. And, in many cases, you might, want to make some people still do this the old school way. They make pumpkin pie, but you might figure out that your store doesn't have pumpkins. So how do you make pumpkin pie? I'm going to give you a secret. All those canning companies that sell pumpkin pie in a can, well, there's a exception to the rule. It's not necessarily those orange pumpkins that are found in the pumpkin pie. Pumpkin in the United States is interchangeable internationally as a squash. So a lot of times when you're buying what you think is canned pumpkin is actually canned butternut or kabocha squash. So in the can of pumpkin pie, they use different varieties of squashes, not necessarily pumpkin per se. So I challenge you, and I think it's going to have a better turnout than if you used a pumpkin for pumpkin pie. Use butternut squash. That imparts a spicier flavor to it. I mean, it is in the same family and a cousin to the pumpkin. But I think flavor profiles, I think in terms of all the winter squashes, butternut is the most popular in the United States. Well, it is. But, you can also make a pumpkin pie using kabocha squash, too. That's another good one.
Yeah.
And, when you go in the produce department, as of September all the way through about the 1st of January, you're going to see all these different varieties. And you, too, can make a pumpkin pie out of all those other varieties. But I very much recommend using, instead of your canned pumpkin and you want to make it from scratch, instead of using a pumpkin, because you might not be able to find them, use butternut squash or kabocha squash. It would be fabulous.
Yeah. What about a blend of those? You said they're doing it in the canned things. Would it, I can imagine that if you got 2 or 3 different types of squash and fresh and blended them, you could come up with a really interesting flavor profile there.
You definitely can. You definitely can. I mean, they always, so pumpkins are harvested one time a year, every September. And so, which don't go into the fresh market, the pumpkins that you find in the stores that are very presentable, but the unpresentable ones go into the processing, the canning ones, because there's flaws or defects, or they're not nicely round shaped. Mother Nature is perfect in that it creates a perfect fruit or vegetable, but in terms of what it looks like, it might not be presentable to the fresh market, which becomes your Halloween jack-o'-lantern and whatnot. So then all those tons of pumpkins that don't pass the grade to be a pumpkin in your store for Halloween end up going to all the canning companies. And if they run out of pumpkin, if they don't meet their quota of how much pumpkin they need to process, then they'll extract the year-round availability of the 4 most common winter squashes and use that as a replacement for canned pumpkin. And number 1 is butternut. Number 2 is banana. 3 is kabocha. and the fourth is the acorn. So you can use any of those. They all impart a different flavor profile and texture. But now you know the secret's out. It's you can use the winter squash as interchangeable for making pumpkin pie.
Right. Well,
and
when
it comes
comes
serve it at Thanksgiving, make sure you just call it butternut pie. Leave out the squash word.
Yes, you can. You can. You've heard it here, so I guess you can.
Squash pie. Well, you know what?
Butternut pie sounds really intriguing. And a lot of people think, "What's a butternut?" And say, well, try it first, and I'll tell you.
I always laugh when fall rolls around and Starbucks and all these places have pumpkin spice everything. And I go, it's really not the pumpkin flavor that people want. It's those spices, the cinnamon and the nutmeg and the sugar. So that's really what you're tasting. So you just need some sort of squash to convey those spices.
Yes. Correct.
Very good. Now, I think you've got a couple of very interesting fall fruits that you want to tell us about that can complement a Thanksgiving meal.
Yeah, well, because the summer has passed, you're not going to see as many grapes now. The fig season's about to end. Peaches, nectarines, plums, cherries, all those summer fruits are gone for the season. But there are specialty seasoned fruits that are available to us most often than not now, like persimmons, pomegranates, apples and pears. This is the peak of the season for apples and pears because this is the time of the year they all get picked. Even though apples and pears you can pretty much find in your produce department on a year-round basis, it's during this time, September through December, where you're going to see more varieties than any other time during the year. So let me give you a kind of a recap of the best because I know it's so confusing when you guys go to your local produce department and see a dozen different varieties of apples and say, oh my gosh, what is the right one to cook with? What is the right one to eat raw? What is the right one to use raw in a salad? What is the right one to cook with in a pie? So I'm going to give you a kind of what is traditionally and non-traditionally the best of the best. So when you're doing an apple pie, I think most people often they love using the Granny Smith. It's very accessible. It's available on a year-round basis. It's tart, but it is sweet, especially when it's cooked. And that's why the Granny Smith is the number one apple when you're making a dessert or apple pie. But there's so many different heirloom varieties that are available in the marketplace that have a tartness, but also sweet. And one of the ones that have been, I think, most overwhelming in the last few years are what are called the hidden rose apples. These are those apples that are pinkish red on the inside. They're the only apple that does not cut with an interior of white. It's an heirloom variety. It was always known for its cooking properties, but it's sweet. So you can eat it out of hand, but you can also cook with it. So look for these heirloom varieties. I know another favorite of mine is that one that's black skinned on the outside. That particular one is just about to come in this season. It's called a black Arkansas variety. These are some of those tartar varieties that just cook better. The tartar the apple is, the better it cooks. So in other words, most often than not, the most tart are those little crab apples and those lady apples. Those are best cooked. The kids like to eat them raw because they like that tart, shocking flavor to them, and they're small apples, but they're mainly used more often than not for cooking purposes. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, a great sweet apple, an apple that you would use like into a green salad or on a charcuterie plate, like a fruit platter of different fruits of the season. Persimmons is a great one, but in terms of apples, the top apple variety right now, I've recently tasted about a dozen of them just in the last few days. And my favorite, hands down, is the green dragon apple, highly seasonal variety. It comes from Oregon. It looks like a green Granny Smith on the outside, but is not tart and super sweet. It's delicious. Look for it, green dragon apple.
Green dragon.
Another very sweet variety. I think hands down, most of Americans embrace that one variety that came out of Minnesota. You hear that, Rick?
Yeah.
The Honeycrisp apple. The
Right.
Honeycrisp is it looks like a reddish yellow, very crisp apple. That has become the most popular sweet apple here in the United States. They even grow it not only in the Midwest and the East Coast, but also on the West Coast as well, from Oregon to Washington, who's most known for their apples in the United States. Even in California, the Honeycrisp, you cannot go wrong. But there's one other variety I want you to write down. This is now one of my favorites because it's just tasting so good this season. It's a newer variety. It's a mixture of a Gala, Fuji, all these really popular varieties, and a Honeycrisp. It's called Honeys. Hunnyz. Honeys.
Okay. Honeys.
It is honey sweet, and it is a great tasting apple. I think it's the best tasting sweet apple that I tasted this week, kind of like the green dragon apple. But, pound for pound, the easy and most accessible sweet apple that I think is way better now from your regular Fuji and Gala apple or your Red Delicious apple. That's not even in my top 10 anymore, the Red Delicious apple. That was so popular a long time ago. Not anymore. These Honeys apples. Write it down. Okay. Go to your store and look for them.
I got to see those. That's great. And is that a proprietary?
What varieties does Melissa's sell?
We sell them all. The Melissa's doesn't not sell any variety of apple. We sell it both conventionally and organically, as we're the largest variety supplier of variety produce in the United States, and organic variety supplier, fresh organics in the country there. Right now, we have about 17 different varieties of apples, and the most well-known Melissa's ones are the green dragon apples, the Honeycrisp. We sell a lot of organic Fujis and Galas, but one variety that the kids love the best because they're small apples. It looks like a little crab apple, but it's a sweet apple. It's not it's in the crab family, but it's the exact opposite. So I don't want to assume that it is a crab apple variety because it's super sweet. It's available only organic. It grows out of California, and it's called Organic Crimson Gold Apples. The apple is about the size of a ping pong ball. And you guys want your kids to eat apples? You give them one big apple, your kid is only going to eat half that apple. You give them about a dozen of those little organic crimson gold apples, they'll eat like 12 of them, which is equivalent to like 2 or 3 apples. Oh, wow. It's crazy. I used, when my kids were younger, they're much older now. That was their favorite apple I'd bring home during the fall season, those organic crimson gold apples. And the season just started 2 weeks ago and will go all the way through early January.
I don't think I've seen them. If I had seen them, I probably would have assumed they were crab apples and not for eating raw, but that's interesting.
Do you eat the core as well?
No, on most apples you won't. If you're juicing, correct. You've got extra fiber and flavor and texture in an apple, but they are very small and they will leave a core just like a traditional apple. Yeah.
Okay. And
juice it and you won't have any waste.
You mentioned the Arkansas blacks. We grew up on those. We had them locally. And so where do you source those from? Are they California apples or are
they? They are California apples. You don't see a lot of different heirloom varieties growing out of the biggest growing areas there, especially like Washington. They grow some heirloom varieties, but California, they want to compete. California has the weather. They want to compete with some of the bigger apple states like, Michigan or New York or Minnesota or, for most of the United States, it's Oregon and Washington in particular. California, they're really focusing on a lot of the different heirloom varieties. If you ever Google apple varieties, you'll easily see over 350 varieties. However, commercially in the United States, there's about 24 that have made it to the fresh market. And I would say some of the best varieties, whether it's a traditional, more common Fuji or Gala, to your heirloom varieties like those exciting hidden rows that are pink on the inside, or those black Arkansas that are literally black skinned and they cut white like any other apple, but they're really crisp and tart. And they're great not only out of hand apples, but they're good cooking apples.
Mm-hmm. As I remember, they had less shelf life, but maybe they've improved the variety somewhat. I don't know.
The Arkansas
No.
black actually has a very long shelf life.
Oh, does it? Maybe
Yeah.
I'm confusing it with something else, I guess.
All apples have a really good shelf life. However, they don't store as well as some of the other well-known apple varieties that they put in cold storage for a long time. Because if you didn't know, apples are only picked like many other crops, like potatoes or onions, only one time a year. Usually it's in August, September, and then they're put in storage throughout the rest of the year. And that's how you're able to have domestic apples on a year-round basis. The black Arkansas, they don't put into cold storage. So it's going to be a highly seasonal variety that you would find in the store only during the months of November and December, maybe early January. But it is a very short season because it's not a commercial commodity type apple.
Right. Okay. Very good. Well, this has been enlightening. Have you got anything else exciting you want to tell us about? Or
Sure.
Okay.
One other variety, pears. Pears,
yes,
just like the apples, there's so many exciting varieties out there, especially this time than any other time. And there's other specialty varieties that are highly seasonal. I think the most common is the Anjo. That's the variety that's available on a year-round basis, kind of a greenish to yellow skin. Bartlett is very common, about 8 to 10 months out of the year. That one's the yellow skin, the traditional. But I would say some of the more seasonal ones and exciting varieties is that one called the Bosque. It actually has like a brown rustic skin. Those cook so well and are so elegant on a cutting board. But my favorite, unlike a traditional pear, is those seasonal butterscotch pears that we bring in from South Korea. They're in the Asian pear family. What looks like a yellow apple is actually a pear variety, but it cuts like an apple and it's crisp, but it's 100% all pear. So you've got the best of both worlds. You've got the flavor profile of a pear, but you've got the crispness of an apple. The season just started in November and usually goes until March.
Okay. Yeah, you've told us about
variety.
those. You've told us about those before. They are fantastic and correctly named. They have that kind of unique flavor that it's kind of like eating butterscotch.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
Well, fantastic. You're always interesting, informative, delightful. We really appreciate you taking the time. I did see something, an announcement from Melissa's just recently, last couple of days, about the Melissa's Family Baking Challenge. Can you tell our listeners about that, and what can they do to get in on that?
Oh, definitely. All you have to do, if you're into baking, and especially during the holiday season, I think who doesn't like to bake? Well, people who don't like to cook, obviously. But if you go onto our website, one of our first banners that you'll see scrolling at melissas.com, you'll see about varieties of potatoes, which I talked about, some exciting varieties of pineapples. You'll also see about Thanksgiving and the menu of some of the ingredients that I was talking about and what Edwin kind of introed the show about. But there's also a way to get into this baking challenge. You just have to sign up and sign in using, you go to your local store, use some of your Melissa's ingredients that you'll find at your local store, submit your baking dish into Melissa's. It's that easy, and get entered into a contest. So just go to melissas.com and you'll see it on our page, scrolling through the banners. And we love to see what everybody's cooking out there and baking for this holiday season, whether it's baking something with persimmons or quince or pomegranates or pears and apples, which we were just talking about, and just sharing the knowledge of cooking for the next generation is just so awesome. And that's just something that we like to do seasonally. And, you'll win some exciting Melissa's gift baskets and prizes that we're offering there. And so just go to melissa.com or, go on to any of our social media handles at Melissa's Produce, which is our handles for Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. You'll see about the contest on there as well. And good luck.
Great. I think I saw that run starts maybe next week and runs to the end of the year, right? Just about to the end of the year.
Correct. Anything you do from Thanksgiving to Hanukkah to Christmas and New Year's will get you into the contest there. Just submit it by the deadline there. Share your family's favorite recipe or yours that you've discovered while watching a show, or it just came to you and you use some really interesting ingredients. We'd love to hear and see what you guys are cooking in your kitchen.
Great. And I suppose they don't send you the cooked product.
No. I'm sorry. They send us a JPEG photo.
Yeah. I just thought I'd make a little joke. Don't send Robert all your baked goodies. He loves to eat them, but just pictures and descriptions and the recipe.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And is there extra points for like making a video of it, or does that you probably don't require that?
Sure. I mean, and also the winners and the ones and the submissions that we think are really great, because what we'll end up doing is taking the recipes and letting our corporate chefs cook with it and see how it comes out.
Okay.
And if we really like it, we will run your recipe and article through our social media. And if you're up with Melissa's Produce social media, we've got like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. So it will bring attraction to your social media handle. Granted that you share that information and give us permission to rebroadcast it because it's a contest winner.
Right.
So you can get some extra social media as a result of what you submit to Melissa.
Right. Fantastic. All right, listeners, get ready for the baking challenge and go to melissas.com. Look for their special Thanksgiving page. It's called the Fresh and Modern Thanksgiving. You'll see that on the top of their page at melissas.com. Click on it. See some really great recipes to spice up your Thanksgiving. So check it out and look for Melissa's in the produce department. Always high quality products from them. So,
Robert, does Melissa's sell candied fruit for fruitcakes?
We do.
Okay.
We sell all the different varieties of dried fruits, such as cherries, cranberries. We do a really good candied orange peel, lemon peel, pineapple, crystallized ginger as well.
Wow, that's good.
So yeah, definitely you go on to melissa.com. A lot of great baking suggestions on there using the candied and dried fruit. There's not produce items that we don't do. So check it out on our website there.
Okay. Yeah, it was a tradition. Our grandmother used to make fruitcake, and our aunt, and they made a fantastic version of fruitcake. Most people.
Oh, it was edible.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
edible.
Yeah.
Most people turn their noses up at fruitcake, but boy, we loved it. It was great. So anyway,
Okay.
Well, Teresa, do you have something for us today? Robert,
I do.
Can't come on without being punished.
Yeah.
By our homegrown. Teresa, punish us with the homegrown of the day.
Okay. Well, at Thanksgiving, that's the time that the family wants to turn those addictive cell phones off, put them away so they can enjoy a relationship with the rest of the family. So I heard a story from one woman who said that she forced all the kids, put the cell phones in a basket, took them away. And while they were eating, suddenly they heard a cell phone. How did they know that it was the turkey's cell phone that was ringing?
Even the turkey had a cell phone, huh?
Yeah. So how did they know?
You're not talking about one of our family Thanksgivings and I was the turkey. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no.
Okay, so the cell phones were taken away and one of them started to ring. I get it.
Right.
All right. But as soon as it started ringing, they knew it was the turkey's cell phone. Okay.
Correct.
So what do you think, Rick? You got an answer for that one?
Because he's the only one who was stuffed. I don't know.
No, that's not even funny.
No.
Robert, have a guess?
I don't know. I think Edwin was trying to hide his cell phone in the giblets or something.
Okay,
been
I
it.
got nothing on this one
Okay.
either. But okay, so how did they know it was the turkey's cell phone?
Well, as soon as it rang, they heard wing, wing.
Oh, man.
Oh, that is so Robert, I'm sorry. I don't know why you keep coming back. We always do this to you. I mean, but anyway, I appreciate you coming.
I enjoy it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, then. Thank you so much, Robert. Such a pleasure. Hope to see you again soon.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was
All
fun.
right.
Enjoy
Take
it.
care. Bye-bye.
Okay, you guys.
Right.
There we go.
Robert, thank you.
Okay, so look for those
generous.
next week. And you guys soup up your Thanksgiving. Happy holidays to all of you. And
Okay.
until
All
we
right.
speak again next season, okay?
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Take care,
Bye.
Robert.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Produce Buzzers podcast, brought to you by Produce Buzz, the gathering place for lovers of fresh fruits and veggies. We hope you were entertained a bit and educated a lot about fresh produce. Be sure to join us next time, and please tell your friends to do so as well. Like, share, and comment on our Produce Buzz Facebook page. And check out our website at www.producebuzz.com. There you will find articles about fresh fruits and veggies, how to select, store, and prepare them, as well as lots of interesting facts about all the wonderful bounty the earth provides for us. Until next time, be fruitful and don't forget to veg out.